Welcome everyone to the Beyond Digital Accelerate with the Skills You Need event, hosted here at the University of Waterloo, and I'm very pleased to be the moderator of this event, and my name is Norah McRae. This event will be recorded, and before we get started, I would like to do a territorial acknowledgement. The University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River. Our active work toward reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is centralized within our Indigenous Initiatives Office. So as I said, my name is Norah McRae, and I am the Associate Provost of Co-operative and Experiential Education at the University of Waterloo, and it's an absolute delight to be here today moderating this event. As is no surprise to anyone who's been through the last year and a half plus, there's a rapid digital transformation going on both in Canada and around the world. And of course, at the University of Waterloo, we're very aware of that and very interested in ensuring that our students and graduates are well equipped to face that digital transformation, and in so doing help industry and our community in doing that. Building on our world-class co-op program, which has been around for over 60 years, and leveraging the many wonderful industry collaborations we've had, we wanted to work with what COVID had provided to us, an opportunity to accelerate the development of digital skills in our students. And as a result of that, and building on research of over 70,000 job postings where we could identify what are the digital skills that our employers, our co-op employers, were wanting, and a research-based framework that we've developed called the Future Ready Talent Framework, we wanted to innovate a co-op-like program, a work-integrated learning program, which we launched this spring term called the We Accelerate program. We could not have done this without having a strong base of relationships with employers, because it was based on the concept of co-creating digital content that our employer collaborators provided for us. Students were provided with that digital content, and then they were put into teams of 5 to work in interdisciplinary teams on projects where they applied that content and were able to really deepen their understanding of what that content was, and it was all related to digital skills. This program was bookended by job readiness training, extra job readiness training that our Career Center provided. And we had many of our employer and industry collaborators providing coaching and mentorship to our students as well. So it was a very exciting initiative, and one that we feel extends our opportunity for our employers to engage with us, and extends an innovative pathway for our students to participate in a quality work integrated learning experience. And we could not have done this, as I said, without industry, and 2 of our wonderful collaborators are with us today. And I'm going to be introducing all of our speakers to talk about not just this program, but about digital futures for Canada and for the economy, what we need to be thinking about as we continue to partner as a university with industry. So what I would like to do now is start by introducing our guests, and then we'll go into some questions and conversation. So first of all, please allow me to introduce Kevin Peesker, who's the president of Microsoft Canada. Kevin is responsible for leading a world-class team that delivers transformative outcomes for Canadians. Through Microsoft's partner ecosystem, citizenship efforts, and employee engagement program, Kevin's objective is to empower every person and organization across Canada to achieve more. In addition to his Canadian responsibilities, Kevin serves as Corporate Vice President and member of Microsoft's Global Sales, Marketing and Operations Executive Leadership Team. Thank you very much for joining us, Kevin, who is also passionate about the development of teams, building customers for life, and driving collaboration between government, industry, and technology, which is very much what this program is all about. So you'll be an expert contributor today.
Thank you, Norah.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce David McKay, President and CEO of the Royal Bank of Canada. Dave is, the Royal Bank of Canada is Canada's biggest bank and one of the largest in the world based on market capitalization. Dave McKay is reimagining the future of financial services to help RBC's clients thrive and communities prosper. An unwavering champion of innovation, big ideas, and creativity, Dave is a leading force behind RBC's investments in artificial intelligence and machine learning to help unlock the insights and power of data for clients. In his home market, he's a passionate advocate for Canada's future prosperity and preparing youth for the future of work through the support and development of RBC's Future Launch, a 10-year, $500 million commitment to help young people build the skills required to succeed in a changing world. Dave joined RBC in 1983 as a Waterloo co-op student in computer programming before moving to the organization's retail banking arm. Welcome, and thank you very much for being here with us today. And our new president, Vivek Goel, our new president and Vice Chancellor at the University of Waterloo. Dr. Goel is a distinguished scholar with extensive achievements in research, teaching, and leadership across both public and private sectors. Vivek is recognized in Canada and around the world as a leading public health researcher, health services evaluation expert, and champion for the use of research evidence in health policy making. He has held a number of senior leadership roles at the University of Toronto, including Vice President and Provost, and most recently as Vice President Research and Innovation. Vivek is a Fellow of the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences, a Fellow of the Fields Institute for Research in Mathematical Sciences, and a member of the Order of Canada. And it's a tremendous pleasure to have you as our President and Vice Chancellor, and it's lovely to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us. All right, so I am going to also get into our panel of questions at this point in time. What I'll be doing is asking each of the panelists to take the lead in answering these questions, and then there'll be an opportunity for the other panelists to chime in if they wish. So the first question, and this is directed at you, Dave, is what does Canada's digital acceleration mean to you?
Well, thanks, Nora. It's wonderful to be able to join the student body today. I have great memories of Waterloo, and I wish I was on campus. I hope you were all on campus. I'm sitting here today in our large tower in downtown Toronto, a largely empty tower. I think that signifies yet the bank continues to operate across 15 million clients in 46 countries, and we're not missing a beat. So the world of work is changing. The world of our clients and their economies are changing. And I think to your question of the acceleration of digital in our society has transformed just about everything, from the place of work, as I just said, to how we deliver value and exchange goods and services, and how we operate as a society and an economy. And I think it's incredibly exciting. In the first kind of platform, the world of work, and we're operating a bank, as I said, with over 15 million clients, $1.5 trillion balance sheet, still largely remotely, with 75% of our employees, other than our branch employees, are opening the branches. The rest of our employees globally are largely working from home. Yet we continue to innovate, we continue to work collaboratively and solve problems and work on behalf of our clients and our communities. I do worry that it impacts culture, it impacts relationships. A pure digital world can be difficult, and we're learning. It's a journey, but we remain incredibly open-minded. Now, the other aspect of digital that is exciting, and as a student entering the workforce, we are transforming every aspect of our society using data, turning data to knowledge and then to value. We are transforming education, transforming medicine, transforming banking, transforming retail, transforming energy. And there couldn't be a more exciting time to be part of the global economy, to be studying and getting ready and building skills to enter and transform everything we do. And we're very much focused at RBC in transforming our business and helping our clients transform their businesses, whether it's through AI, through new business models, breaking down the barriers of business model and customer value chains, and kind of rebuilding a bank from the ground up. It's incredibly exciting, and I see all of our clients doing something similar, rethinking how they're going to serve customers, where they're going to serve customers, using what type of technology, from robotics to AI. This unbelievable world of digital acceleration, collecting more data each year than we collected in the previous 10 on this exponential curve, and how we create that data into real value. So I think as we go through this journey, I couldn't be more excited for the students who are going to come and lead this country, following myself and others. And real pleasure to be here, and I'll let my peers, Vivek and Kevin, jump in on the question. It's such an important question.
Yeah, hey, Dave, thanks so much for the comments there. Maybe I'll jump in first on it. You clearly called out much broader than banking the impact of digital acceleration. For the students out there, our CEO at Microsoft, Satya Nadella, stated a couple of months into the pandemic that globally there was more digital transformation in 2 months than there has been in the last 2 years. And as Dave called out, that's been very apparent across industries, throughout the private sector, and across all levels of government, in cities, in provinces, and federally. And for myself, just a background, it's been more than 30 years in the tech industry. I will share that the intellectual challenge of applying technology to deliver timely business outcomes, it has never been so time-bound as it is today. And what I mean by that is there's been a fundamental awakening in every industry, in all aspects of running organizations, almost a collective revolt on the status quo of how things were done because of the capabilities embedded with digital acceleration and digital enablement. And at the core of that, it has been, I think, a fundamental transition in supply and demand. Demand for skills that are in short supply. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about this today. And then supply of those skills. And tied to that is really this deep needed requirement for the society that we operate in to step up on multiple levels. And from an organization, I know Dave's been deeply invested, and really, Dave, you've been a thought leader in the regard of building skills for the next generation of the Canadian economy. You've been doing that in multiple ways. Well, we need to address the same barriers around digital acceleration, which includes partnerships across government, academic institutions, and businesses to collaborate on the development and accentuation of those in-demand skills. But I'll stop there for now, and maybe Vivek, if you have any comments.
Well, thanks both of you for those great comments. And maybe I'll just echo the points with an observation from my own experience in healthcare. I can think back 25 years ago, I was involved with one of the first pilots for telemedicine in Ontario. And, you know, the technology would look primitive today if we compare to what we're working with right now, but it was still functional technology. There were all sorts of barriers to implementation, but there were policy issues, there were funding issues, there were reimbursement, professional practice. And we often focus on the technical side. And I think what COVID really demonstrated, as both of you had said, is that we could overcome those barriers that were there for decades as we were trying to use these technologies, because it was really just inertia. When we had no choice but to do it, we saw family doctors, neurosurgeons doing their consultations all online. And now we're with robotics and so on, we start to see all sorts of other procedures start to move. I think the real issue for students, and I know we'll come to this with further discussion, is while we need to focus on those very significant technological digital skills, we also have to be ready to solve all those other issues that are wrapped around the adoption of these technologies. And so to me, digital acceleration really shows that we can move quickly when we have to, as we saw during COVID, and we have to learn how we can continue to move quickly as we apply some of these technologies in so many other areas of business. The other two things I just wanted to say is we talk a lot about issues with digital access, and traditionally the digital divide referred to those who had technologies and those that didn't have technologies. And we certainly still have to pay attention to that. There's issues of broadband access. We were joking about that even parts of Toronto just before we came on. But there's a new digital divide, I think, that's going to come upon us. It's going to be those who have the skills to be able to thrive in the digital world and those who don't. And so we have to start to think about the new types of digital divide that's going to take place. And the other thing is that these new technologies are going to create new challenges. And Dave referred to the impact potentially on culture of organizations and how you build teams. But there's issues around security. There's the global aspects of this. And so we also need to prepare our students, the next generation of leaders, to be thinking about those challenges that will be coming at us and how we can prepare for them. Thanks.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much. So very, very interesting points that each of you have raised around digital acceleration and how it's upon us and in us, and also the role actually that students can play in helping organizations get there and accelerate as well as think about some of these confounding issues. Let me go to the second question, and I'm going to address this one. Kevin, if you want to kick us off with answering this one, you're good to go? Okay. Being empowered to thrive in this digital acceleration will mean students will need the right skills for the world of work. What are those critical skills, and what advice would you give on how they can develop these skills?
I love that question, and this is a real passion area for me. As you heard from Vivek and Dave, it is fascinating what's actually occurring as we see this massive shift to digital technologies and this increasing demand for people with in-demand digital skills. The interesting component is a lot of people tie it to COVID and the acceleration, but we in the industry, in my industry, saw this coming very rapidly as technology is advanced quite considerably. In particular, you talk about skills, in particular in the cloud. Cloud has democratized the access to compute power, which was previously held by only the largest of universities or governments or institutions in the private sector. It has been AI and the capabilities of understanding data in a completely different way from before, being able to apply machine learning to be instructive and additive to how humans engage and how humans think about work. And it also applies, I think, to the changing labor market requirements, this reshaping that Dave talked about of how his office is pretty empty now, yet his business is as successful, if not more, than it ever has been in a completely shifted change of work, which is something that society has rarely done at such scale within such a short period of time. So maybe I'll just cover a couple of components. When it comes to technology-oriented jobs, the stats here are pretty impressive. The number is about 149 million new technology-oriented jobs will be created over the next 5 years. Right here in Canada, I chair the Canadian Industry Association for Technology. We know there's about 200,000 open technology jobs right now in Canada that need to be filled. So we will see an increase in demand for a couple of those components, cloud, data, AI skills that I talked about. But I think we should go further than that. And for those of you who code for fun, it's great for those of you who do, that's awesome. But for those of you who don't, please don't despair. I think, and I'm aligned to the fact that applying technology is as important, if not more so, than creating the technology. Both require a phenomenal asset of skills, collaboration, creativity, risk-taking, resilience, adaptability, having a learning mindset. I'll make a big statement, which is, I think the reality is that every job is a tech job. Now, you could argue me on a few of the jobs around the fringes, but I don't think it's going to be the case that just people working in technology or in IT in organizations are the ones who require digital literacy. What we're seeing is those in marketing and finance and HR and operations and legal, they also require digital skills. And I'll end with this before I turn over to my colleagues. At Microsoft, we have leadership principles, and I'll share with you, they're not thou shalt be a geek out awesome coder. That's not what our leadership skills. Our leadership skills are creating clarity, generating energy, and delivering success. And so regardless of what field of study you're in, when it comes to creating clarity, it's in a world of complexity. How do you simplify? When it comes to generating energy, it's that idea that success comes from alignment of the critical few or the many, and not just individually. When it comes to delivering success, that is success in many forms. So I think this is an incredibly rich area about thinking about skills, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues for their thoughts.
That's great, Kevin. Thank you very much for that. And you made the comment that having the technical skills, the ability to apply them in appropriate ways, and that's very much what your latter points were about. The skills and capabilities that are going to be required to apply this technology throughout every type of industry and sector, which very much resonates, Dave, with the work that the Royal Bank has done on future skills and human skills and future launch, and how to develop those human skills as well, and in concert with the tech skills. And as you well know, in the We Accelerate program, that's why we built the program around students working in teams of 5 to build some of those human skills, teamwork, interpersonal skills, intercultural skills, as they apply the technology that they were learning on specific projects. So I don't know, Dave, if you have a comment on that you'd like to add.
Sure. I mean, I think Kevin really covered it well. Good news and the bad news. Maybe start with the bad news. The bad news is so many of you are competing with software. And as we talk about software eating the world, we're coding so much of the traditional knowledge that we've passed through post-secondary academic institutions from one generation to the next through our universities and colleges. We're just as fast, we're coding all of that knowledge into software, whether it's the legal industry, the trades, medicine, education, even companies like right out of Waterloo that I was just spent a couple of days with Martin Basiri at Apply Board. How you apply to universities, all the knowledge of those the admissions group of a university being coded into software. So as you think about the world that's consuming more knowledge in software and centralizing that knowledge, the bar to an entry-level job in our society is going up. So how do we get you ready for different types of entry-level jobs? To Kevin's point, there's lots of technology jobs, but there's still a lot of other roles that are going to require different skills and higher entry-level capabilities. So I think from that perspective, the world is changing. That's why we need programs that help our students build those skills. That's why co-op education and work integrated learning, going to school, going to work, and building that background of how do you apply your knowledge is the best way to educate the next generation. And Waterloo's proven that for decades now. The rest of the world is catching up with that, and Waterloo is certainly a leader in work integrated learning. But it's about problem solving. And I'll leave one last point because I could go on and on about this, and maybe we'll cover it later. Communicate. The difference between people who are successful and super successful is teaming and communicating. I've seen so many tech entrepreneurs in Canada and the Valley, and I'm sure, Kevin, you've seen them. They
Yes.
start they're great engineers, they come up with the idea, they code the idea, and then they hit a wall. And then Andreessen Horowitz, all of the Sequoia, all of the big venture capital firms parachute a new CEO in who has communication and leadership ability to scale the company, because they can communicate externally, internally with employees, take that company and build it. And I see it in my own organization. So many young students come in with incredible hard skills, to Vivek's point, but they can't communicate, written or verbally. So, those arts classes that I moaned about taking at Waterloo, those communication classes, they're really important, really, really important. And I'll pass it over to Vivek for that. That's
great, thanks.
Yes, so you both said much of what I would say. I'll just add that these skills that we're talking about are obviously important for the world of work, but they're also important for people to be good citizens in our society. And so if we think about information and data literacy, and you look at how people are consuming information or misinformation and not necessarily being able to judge what's happening with COVID, it shows the importance in this digital age where so much information and data is so readily available to everyone on the most fundamental decisions that we have to make as individuals in our society. We also need to build on these skills. Norah, you referred in the introductory comments to the Future Ready Talent Framework. And I think it really does speak to the points that both Kevin and David had made. There's 12 competencies listed. The first is sort of the discipline, context-specific skills, the technical knowledge that might be important if you're going to be an electrical engineer or a physicist. But then the other 11 are really around all these other areas. And I'll just pick on a few of them, which I think are really important. One of them is technological agility, because you can't, in your 4 or 5 years in university, expect to know what's going to be coming in 6 years, let alone over a 30-year career. And so being able to be agile and adopt as technologies change and being able to develop the next generation. The innovation mindset, and I think that's what Waterloo is really all about. And regardless of, again, what role you go into, those all lead to what you referred to as the human skills. And I remember when I was working with the Vector Institute on the Applied AI Master's Program a few years back, we did a roundtable of discussions about what AI skills are employers looking for. And the thing that came up to the top was ethical AI and how to design fair algorithms. So, skills in deep learning and computational sciences were important, but what employers were really looking for were what we might call softer skills, but those were actually the really important skills. And then, communication, collaboration, intercultural effectiveness, how you build those relationships, because again, both David and Kevin have referred to, people are going to be working in teams around the globe, and in this new environment of work, there's no longer, you're going to be working here in Toronto or Bangalore or Shanghai. You're going to be working in teams with people right around the world. And then the final one, I think, Norah, is really important, and that's developing yourself. There's a whole cluster of skills around managing yourself, being a lifelong learner, because it's not going to end when you walk out the door here at Waterloo, whether it's physical or virtual. You're going to have to be a lifelong learner. You're going to have to manage yourself over your career.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Those very thoughtful comments that you've reflected, Vivek. And I think I would like to carry on with you if you are willing to answer the third question or take the lead on the third question here, which is, how can universities and industry work together?
First of all, it's having great partners like Microsoft and RBC to work with. For Waterloo, and I'm still learning about this institution, but it's founded on partnerships with industry, and the whole model of co-op education that we're known for is based on working with our partners in industry on meeting the needs for our students. But we also know that the model has to continue to evolve with the times. And so programs like We Accelerate that you referred to earlier, I'd kind of look at co-op coming in as a big box type of solution. Like if you think of big box stores, co-op works with large employers, like RBC or Microsoft. If we think about how work is changing, we have to think about how we do work integrated learning in a range of settings. And so We Accelerate, where you've looked at what employers are looking for and looking at how we develop skills for our students. Where are the professional competencies that actually people in the workplace can bring to our students? And so in We Accelerate, there was a partnership with Microsoft for providing industry certifications like Azure and AI fundamentals. So ensuring that students, as part of that work integrated learning experience, actually got access to state-of-the-art training that our corporate partners are able to provide. The other area I'll just remark on very quickly is what co-op education has really led to at Waterloo is really deep research partnerships, right? And the cycle where students are coming back, telling their professors about the problems that they saw, helps the professors start to think about what research they should be doing next, builds the connections with industry. So we need to continue to build on those types of models and to really go from, I think, the traditional model, which was either push out from the universities into the industry or pull from the industry to co-creation of knowledge, and to develop true partnerships with our industry partners in terms of what new knowledge needs to be generated, and work together on that with our students, our graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, as well as our undergraduate students in their co-op placements.
That's great. Thank you very much. Who would like to follow up? Dave, are you, would you like to take a crack at that question as well?
Yeah, I'd just like to build on Vivek's comments because they resonate so strongly. From my background as a co-op student, as you referenced, I joined here as a programmer, a coder. I think they're still trying to debug my programs. And I switched very quickly into the business side and the leadership side of the bank after a couple of work terms, and allowed me to reorient my time. It allowed the government to get a better return. I didn't pursue a 4-year kind of coding computer science degree, find a job, and then 6 years into my 20s decide that I wanted to pivot. I pivoted in year 2 at Waterloo, and for me it was just so much more efficient to do that and a better use of my time and money. And I think that is one of the secrets of continually challenging yourself. Are you on the right track? And to the point, we have to expand that flexibility. Some of the most important and most rewarding work terms might be a year long. Universities like Oxford are looking at programs where you do 2 years of school and then you go work for 2 years, and then you have 2 years of credits to reorient and finalize your major, instead of asking students to make a decision in high school, commit to a 4-year stream, go through that. So, to the point around flexibility and work integrated learning, universities and businesses have to work together to provide that rich learning environment that Vivek so beautifully articulated.
That's great. Okay, Kevin, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, just both gentlemen called it out really astutely there. I would just add, my additive comments would be for all those students out there, this is a challenge that is going to continue when you are in leadership position making decisions about how you allocate investments. And I do believe that this specific topic we're talking about here of skilling and enablement and the tie-in of our universities with industry, with the cooperation of government, really is all about Canada remaining globally competitive. And no one organization is going to do that alone. In the last 12 months, my Canadian team created a Canada Skills program. We leveraged assets that we utilize to train our own Microsoft team members and LinkedIn team members. And that program saw over 1 million Canadians access online courses to develop skills on their own. And so we were like, Yahoo, this is fantastic. But then I have to sit back and remind my team, well, that's 1 million. We have 36 other million Canadians who also need access and who also need to be participative in the digital economy that we're moving forward with. So my final call out is just, big thank you to University of Waterloo and your colleague peer organizations across the country who have really been leaning in on this. I think the addition of practical certifications that are in demand in Dave's workplace are very, very valuable in augmenting many of the other components we talked about of being a student and a learner.
That's great.
Norah,
okay.
Can I jump in?
Sorry, yes, please do.
Is it open? I'd like to reference an organization that Kevin's been part of it, and Vivek just joined, and that's the Business Higher Education Roundtable, which I've had the great fortune of being part of and sharing in this particularly part of its incarnation. And the goal of the Business Higher Education Roundtable, bring together the college and university presidents across Canada with the top business leaders in the country. And the commitment we made was to create work integrated learning experiences for 100% of Canadian undergrads. And right now we're short. We're running at 40% placement rates, and there's another 60% of Canadian undergrads who don't have the opportunity to take a work integrated learning position. So we've committed that. We're working on that. We created 45,000 work integrated learning positions over the last year and a half, and we have another roughly 100,000 to go. So I think from that perspective, a great example in Canada of business and higher education coming together to help students get ready for the future of work.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thanks very much for mentioning that and the great work that you're doing. We are very privileged this afternoon to be joined by 3 students who did participate in the We Accelerate program. And they will be coming on screen, introducing themselves, and then we'll be asking a question of one of you. So, Shiley, we have you you've joined us today. And if you could introduce yourself, Shiley, and then ask your question to President Goel.
Hi, my name is Shiley Kadakia, and I'm a student at the University of Waterloo. I'm currently in my 2A term studying a double degree in computer science and business administration. This question is for President Goel. I was wondering which industries do you feel were less accessible before, but now with work integrated learning experiences have the opportunity to grow and get more people involved?
Great, thanks for that excellent question, Shaylee, and I hope your studies are going well this term. And I referred earlier in the last response to co-op as a big box type of program. That's the traditional model, and if you think of the original programs in engineering and so on, students tended to go work for large companies for a 12-week work term. As Dave was just saying, we need much more flexible models as jobs and industries are changing. And so with work integrated learning, we can now see that we're able to put students into small businesses. And during the pandemic, the co-op program actually worked to put co-op students into small businesses that were trying to figure out how they do the digital transformation overnight for their business. We're also starting to look with work integrated learning, how we can place students into the gig economy. And so there's all sorts of different industries where you're essentially working for yourself, getting your employment through different types of technology tools, and how are people going to get co-op placements, work integrated learning in those types of environments. And the final thing that I'm personally very excited about, given my own background in public health, is that with work integrated learning, we can start to think about placing students in settings that might not traditionally have been able to afford to have a co-op student. So not-for-profit organizations, community agencies, and help them use different digital tools or other technology tools in addressing these really big global challenges that we face. And so work integrated learning as a framework really gives us a much broader approach than a single model. But I would like to, again, say, though, Waterloo's been doing the big box co-op model for over 60 years and has done it really well. And to the point about across the country, we still have 60% of students that don't have any work integrated learning opportunity. We're very fortunate that our students all have access to this full range of opportunities.
That's great, thank you. And thank you, Charlie, for your question. Our next student is Asil Osman. Asil, would you please introduce yourself and then ask your question of Kevin?
Hello, everyone. My name is Asil Osman. I'm a second-year nanotechnology engineering student, and my question is directed to Kevin Peesker. So, Mr. Peesker, in today's workforce, competition to get your first job seems so fierce, and the skills that employers are looking for are constantly changing. So how do learning experiences like industry certifications and work integrated learning help students prepare to overcome the, and I quote, need experience to get experience issue that many of us face today?
Wow, that's a brilliant question. And I think many of you might be too young to remember the movie line, but there's this movie line that goes, "You had me at hello," Well, Asil, you had me at nanotechnology. I'm so excited just by that. Hey, first, I think it's so really important to remember that the people who are kind of, asking questions and answering questions here, Dave, Vivek, Norah, and myself, we were all where you are now. And my work experience at one stage consisted of collecting shopping carts, sweeping floors, and cleaning members' golf clubs. And I was doing those 3 different jobs at the same time when I was in high school and then in university. We all start somewhere. And I think I'd frame this by saying I'm a huge, personally, and I've seen this in other senior leaders, I'm a huge proponent of every job, whether it's formal employment, volunteer leadership, participation in some of the programmatic elements that were discussed already that you can run through in school, the roles you undertake in clubs at school, all of them provide you skills, and those critical skills which help you figure out who you are, how you work with others, what type of work you like doing. All of that really demonstrates how you care and how much you are wanting to learn. And for reference, I am a person who grew up in middle-class Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I took action to live on 5 continents, traveled to over 70 countries, and through my career, probably like Dave, take on jobs I had absolutely no idea how to do, but I figured it out. And I think there's this piece of when you put yourself in a position of being uncomfortable, you learn more about your values, your integrity, your respect for others, your work ethic, and your accountability. So with respect to your question of, do you need experience to get experience? I'm going to make it a little bit practical. What my team looks for when hiring early in career individuals is frankly a pattern of behavior which speaks to the candidate's character, their desire to learn, their aptitude, their adaptability, in a sense, their resilience or their curiosity. And importantly, as we've already discussed, the ability to collaborate and communicate with others. Really a clear demonstration that there's passion for learning and that there's an examples of steps that have been taken to build skills. Because let's just be logical. If you are proving that, or you're already undertaking that, you're going to be somebody who every employer is going to want to invest in and to take a chance in, or to assist through their journey. And I don't think you have to have all of the experience that those people who have been out there on their third professional role have. There's absolutely no expectation for that from employers. But what does set one person apart from another, I believe, is the actions that you've taken. And so in that regard, Vivek talked about it. You have in-class learning, you have the ability to gain industry certifications, you have the ability to gain some integrated work experience. All of those are tangible demonstrations of your interest. And I'll give you an example, Emma De Silva. Emma works on my LT. She's an unbelievable asset for Microsoft. She joined right out of Waterloo as a grad in mathematics. She ended up in tech somehow. She worked in product marketing, in sales. She's been our chief financial officer. She now runs marketing and operations. She globally brings new hires on board at senior levels within the company. And she's been participating in an incredibly interesting career over 25 years. All of it off of the perspective of she's had self-determination. There's a line that stuck with me from grad school that goes along the lines of, you can't manage others unless you can first manage yourself. Well, when it comes to managing yourself, that's about caring about yourself, about taking ownership. And I'll leave you with the last comment of Satya Nadella. He's an unbelievable leader, and it's just an honor for me to be able to see him operate each and every week when I'm in his senior leadership meetings. Satya has a great line. You don't get fit by watching other people go to the gym. You actually have to step up and take action. So maybe for those of you who are wondering what you should do in your spare time, I'm fully aligned with binge watching Squid Games, but there's other things you can do as well to demonstrate your interest in having a fascinating career. So thank you again for your question.
That's great. Thank you for a very, very well-rounded answer, Kevin, and lots of things for our students and our audience to think about. And a great call to action. As university students, there's lots of opportunity to be engaged and develop skills and capabilities in a range of ways. Thank you. Now we're joined by our third student, Sydney Poitier, and you have a question for Dave McKay. If you'd like to introduce yourself and pose the question, Sydney, that would be lovely.
Hi, my name is Sydney Pache, and I'm in my third year of biomedical engineering here at Waterloo. My question is for Dave McKay. What advice would you give students who want to develop skills that will remain relevant in the future, but don't quite know which skills, with respect to technology, will be transferable to different jobs?
You're on mute, Dave.
I knew I wasn't going to get through this without going on mute. Okay, so thank you, Sydney, for that really important question, and it's great to see you. And I think I'll build on Vivek's points and emphasize a couple of things, and maybe give you a slightly unexpected answer at the end. But certainly, you can't predict the skills that are coming at us. They're changing so rapidly. There's some very basic hard skills and soft skills I think we've talked about in some of the previous questions around, creating knowledge and value from the work we do, communicating, imagining and creating. But the best thing is to build a framework for constant lifelong learning, how to learn. And one of the secret sauces that I tell some of my mentees internally, as I mentor, is I always approached every role I took by saying, I want to learn 3 jobs in one. You have to learn your job and do a very good role at it, but I always tried to learn my boss's job. What pressures are they facing? What are their objectives? How are they making decisions? How are they managing my peers? How do we work as a team? So I always tried to learn, in case I ever got promoted into my boss's job, I had a framework for how I might pursue the role. And therefore, and I did in many cases in my career get promoted into my boss's job. I wouldn't probably sit here in this role if I hadn't. And I always tried to learn one of my peers' jobs. Take them out to lunch. Did we need to collaborate on anything? If we didn't, what were his or her challenges? How did they approach their job? What was their career background? So if you multiply that over 5 and 10 years, and you're always trying to learn 3 in 1, it's a great career accelerator. So curiosity, always try to learn inside the organization, try to learn outside the organization. So I think that's the best framework. Find something that works for you, create that learning environment for yourself that works for yourself. And then I'll give you a little bit of an unexpected answer. I think the skills in working with the physical world are grossly undervalued by society from a perception perspective. But I think you're about to see a curve shift from value equation to work in the physical world and compensation to work in the physical world. And there's this term called the trades, but the trades are bionic, technology-driven roles now. Whether you're an electrician, a welder, a farmer, farming is a highly intensive technology business right now being transformed, yet we don't have enough people moving into the trades. There's massive demand for young people to work in the physical world. So we've talked a lot about working the digital world, managing data, building AI, working with machines. There's an even bigger demand coming and a massive shortage in working with the physical world. And therefore, I urge you, I'm urging my own kids to think about, do you want to work in a purely digital world? Do you want to work in a bionic world? Do you want to work in a physical world? There's an enormous value in creating something in these disciplines around building buildings, building houses, building farms, transforming the climate agenda, all in our physical world, a very exciting future. So I would answer it in both those ways.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the 3 students, Shiley, Asil, and Sydney, for your thoughtful questions and for your engagement. And then I do believe we are out of time, and I do want to very, very much thank Dave McKay, Kevin Peesker, Vivek Goel for spending some time with us today. We know you're very busy, lots on your plate, but your thoughtful comments and your wise words of advice for our students is greatly appreciated, and we appreciate that time, but also the collaboration we've had with your organizations for many, many years through the co-op program and other endeavors, and then most recently with We Accelerate, has really allowed us to innovate something very different, which we hope will be of great benefit to our students and to the organizations that we worked with. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I wish you all the best, and until next time, thank you and goodbye.